Keep a fire burning red in a Georgia representing for Kams Tv. Big up Kidaki, Buxton massive. Hey Babylon boy, you go on like Kams son. Red. Kams Tv son. You burn this swine when no want you shine. The tree of life, them no want you climb, cause them heart no kind. Kams, I say them heart no kind. Buxton massive. Kidaki. Red that.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now I know what you can even money, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep your conniving money when you've been knocked for a bum. In a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full. In a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now I know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill the piece. A 2 pound note and a kill the piece. A 2 pound note and a kill the piece. This all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in to Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting aisle money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Beep, beep, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see. Sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, which has ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. Stop fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. people. You are a part of the cycle. I say, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. They got Breakford, Bork and Mark Benchcop. David Hinds and Kadaki Amsterdam. Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London. Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, poor people governor. Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson. Hampton Green and Winston Jordan.
Good morning, members of the media. Good morning, colleagues of the Working People's Alliance. It is 10 hours 2, and this press conference is now called to order. I'm Kadaki Amsterdam. Let me take the opportunity to welcome you to this press conference of the Working People's Alliance. With me this morning, we have Dr. David Hinds, Brother Takumo Gonsi, and Brother Dion Abrams, all members of the Executive Committee of the Working People's Alliance. We'll start with Brother Dion reading the statement of the Working People's Alliance, and then we'll go immediately into questions related to these statements, and then any other questions that may arise. Brother Dion.
Okay, thank you, Brother Kidaki, and welcome to the meeting. To this press conference of the Working People's Alliance. This is the WPA media release of March 28, 2023. The WPA has noted with great concern the frenzy emanating from sections of the political and social establishments since it began to hold public meetings 3 weeks ago. Statements from our platform have been picked apart and misrepresented by representatives of the state, the government, and forces sympathetic to the government. Even some representatives of the opposition have lent their voices to the public lynching and the criminalization of our party and some of its members. Brother Takuma Ogunse and David Hinds have been singled out for particular attention in this regard. WPA is convinced that it has touched a raw nerve in the country's political economy, which others have been whispering about. The country's descent into autocracy and ethnocracy. We feel that if the drift is not arrested, our country will enter a state of permanent instability and disorder. WPA has watched with horror as the government has become drunk with the oil revenues which have come our way. Instead of using those revenues to combat poverty and ethnic division, the government, through its policies, has used them as tools of social and ethnic inequality. From routine discrimination in distribution of resources, to extrajudicial killings, to the criminalization of opposition members, to the ruling party's monopolization of every inch of political space. The government has ruled with an iron fist. WPA feels that that approach to governance is unsustainable in any society, particularly one with a history of ethnic contestation and division. It is with that in mind that the WPA took to the streets to dramatize its concerns. We want to alert the rulers and the country at large to the dangers ahead and to eventually cause a political reset. Towards that end, the party not only recounts the instances of social and ethnic sufferings but boldly calls for mass resistance to this by the sufferers in the spirit of the Rodneyite principle of self-activity. Conscious of the politicization of the armed forces by the PPP, WPA deliberately raised the issue as a central factor in both the descent into autocracy and ethnocracy, and the struggle to turn back the descent in that direction. Our view is that the armed forces should not become entangled in partisan politics, regardless of which party holds the seat of government. Their loyalty should be to the Constitution and not the government. Our mantra is unambivalent: turn your guns away from the people. WPA notes the government's open instruction to the law enforcement to prosecute its members, but we remain steadfast in our quest for the political reset referenced above. The very call to the police by the government reflects the autocracy we seek to highlight. It reflects the assassination of free speech. WPA reiterates its position that we have nothing to apologize for or retreat from. We stand by our members and our message. The government's cynical resort to charging the WPA and other opposition forces with racism is reprehensible. It obviously hopes to deflect attention from its own praxis of ethno-political dominance, which invariably leads to ethnic discrimination. From the time of our formation, WPA has always taken a tough stance against ethnic discrimination in high and low places. No society, rich or poor, can truly be democratized in the context of such discrimination. We therefore feel compelled to stand with the Afro-Guyanese community, which in our opinion bears the brunt of the government's venom. WPA takes this opportunity to reiterate its firmly held position that Guyana needs a political solution grounded in shared ownership from governmental power to the economy. The PPP's shutting off the door to executive power sharing is unfortunate, but the struggle for that reality must continue. Towards that end, WPA will continue to work for opposition unity as a necessary tool in the struggle to stop autocratic governance. That is the release of the Working People's Alliance. I hand you now back to the chairman for this conference, Brother Kams.
Dennis Shimral Damrawi. Could any of the panelists, including Mr. Gunse, say whether the police have contacted any of you concerning Mr. Gunse's statements? And also, could you say what safeguards are there to ensure that your statements, Mr. Gunse, are not misinterpreted and result in an inflamed ethnic political pressure?
If I could respond to the latter first, I don't think the WPA could ensure that we engage in the public space like any other political party. And it is up to the press to give an objective interpretation of where they have doubts to contact the party or myself or any other WPA person who may say something on the platform that they feel need clarification. In terms of the direct question about whether the police have made contact with me, the answer is no. And as far as I know, they have not made contact with any WPA person who have so far spoke on the WPA platform.
Yeah, I was trying to read the statement because I logged in a little late. But there are, at least for now, one question I'd like to ask. Sorry, the name is Adam Harris. I did not hear the statement, but did Dr. Hinds refer to the 4 APNU people who criticized comments by Mr. Ogunse as slave catchers? And if so, could he explain the description of those people in his view?
Well, first I must clarify that I did not refer to the 4 people who issued the statement as slave catchers. I referred to Sister Gita Chandan, who criticized Brother Ogunse or condemned him. The other 4 people did not refer to Brother Ogun's statement. They referred to a statement by Sister Rhonda Lane. And so the response, my response was directed at Sister Gita Chandan, who condemned Brother Ogunse. And my reasoning was that as an opposition facing the attacks from the government, when a fellow opposition member throws another member under the bus like that, she was not speaking on behalf of her party. She was speaking on her own behalf. I felt compelled to respond in the harshest way to her. That her actions were akin, or statement was akin to catching slaves or prisoners and delivering them to the government. You have to unmute yourself, Adam. You have to unmute.
Yes, sorry. The other thing that I'm interested in is your reaction to the opposition leader's comments that he agreed with the points identified by Brother Takuma. However, he thought that there was a wrong choice of words, or that the words were somehow not appropriate. Could you, or Brother Gonse, say whether you actually accept that criticism, sir?
If I can address it first, I think the opposition leader is in his right to say how he sees it. And as comrades in the political struggle, I personally and the party, must take note of the position of the opposition leader, and we treat it as comradely. Could
you, Brother Gonse,
criticism?
Say whether you actually accept that criticism,
where he
sir.
Operates. We don't operate. If I can address it first, he have to deal with. We don't have to deal with, and he has to navigate his language and his political conduct consistent with how he assess the objective situation both in the party and the country. We do the same. Now, our choice of language, we're not in parliament. we are the street corner. And our understanding of the Guyanese street corner politics is that when you go to the street corner, as they say, you got to roll up your sleeves. You roll up your sleeves. When the people go to Babujan, they just roll up their sleeves. They don't speak like if they're in Parliament. And I'm convinced, and we are convinced that our language were appropriate for the street corner. And the test of it is not whether the government agree. The test of it is whether it had the desired effect on our constituents in the first place and across the country. And I think anybody who have lived in Guyana know that Guyana is a changed place. And I will argue that the words were appropriate and in political terms, it achieved its objectives.
If I may add, our line was simply do not condemn fellow opposition members and allow the government to use your condemnation to further persecute and criminalize our party. And so in that context, we are not unhappy with the statement made by the opposition leader because we are satisfied that he did not cross that line that we had laid down as to how we were going to deal with comrades on our side, treatment of the statement. As Brother Ogun says, we are conscious that Brother Norton has to deal with issues that we don't have to deal with, and his response has to be led by the circumstances in his party and the fact that he is constitutionally leader of the opposition. We are convinced that he did not deliver prisoners to the other side. And for us, that was where that was where we were going to part company. Had he or any other opposition member delivered prisoners to the PPP?
If I may add, I think
I have a follow-up, please.
Then it's just you see, we have to understand that the PPP is called to all of these organizations that it actually condemns the Guyana Human Rights Association, Red Thread, all of these organizations that it sees as its political enemy, that it basically doesn't want to exist in the country. When it calls out those organizations and is seeking their condemnation, what it is trying to do is to legitimize any action that it wants to take against the WPA, and not only the WPA, but any other political agent or social commentator who will be willing to be frontal in dealing with what is happening in the society, the discrimination, all aspects of corruption and so on. So when they didn't get that, as David said, they were not able to act in the ways that Jack Dew would have proposed in his press conference. And so we are grateful to those, to Brother Norton and all the others who, as Dr. Hinds said, did not throw our members under the bus. It's basically that. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Let me do that. Give me a minute, please. Bear with me. But please continue. I'll try to do that.
Yes, I do. Have you regard to the fact that you've recognized Mr. Norton's position as the opposition leader, and also you also recognizing the language of the street corner, or the views of the people of the street corner To what extent do you believe that the lack of an explicit endorsement by Mr. Norton to Mr. Gunse's statements really waters down the effect and the impact that you're hoping to achieve?
Very frankly, we do not want endorsement from any political party. That's not what we're looking for. The endorsement that we want is the endorsement of the people. And we are convinced from the public meetings that we have had and from comments on social media and from responses to us personally and to the party that those people have endorsed our message. We are not looking for political parties to endorse our message. That is not the kind of politics that we want to inculcate in the country, right? So we do not feel that the fact that Norton did not endorse our statement is a watering down. I think, as I said, we believe that his statement not throwing us under the bus was significant in holding the hand of the government. Mr. Jack Dio sat in his press conference and said that the police should have locked us up from the first day. He said that clearly. And they were hoping to isolate us. And the fact that we have not been isolated by the people, and the fact that the leader of the largest opposition party did not give them a gift, it was significant in terms of holding them hand. Remember, we said very clearly, this is in the hands of the people. This is in the hands of the people and not in political parties. And so therefore, insofar as the largest political party did not line itself up with the PPP to persecute and criminalize us, for us that is significant.
What's your measurement of the impact of your meetings so far?
We don't have any scientific measurement. This country doesn't do polls, and that is a matter for the media. We would like the media to go and measure. That is not our job. All we can say is that our meetings were received by the people who were physically there. I have a show, as you know, a daily show during the week. Brother Kidaki has a daily show in the mornings. And those shows have been our platforms, and we have gotten responses. And people are saying lots of those responses are from people overseas. 90% of our audience are Guyanese. Even we were surprised about that. And they have given positive responses to our message. I think they, in a way, it seems as though people on our side of the aisle were waiting for this frontal contestation with the PPP. I think prior to now, what had happened is that we criticized what the PPP did and has been doing. They've been ignoring us. But once we mount a political party platform in the open space and said clearly to the government, stop it, there will be consequences. It changes the game. So it's up to you in the media and pollsters to go out here and find out what effect it has had. As a political party, our view is, of course, subjective, and some may say anecdotal. So you, the media, that's your job. I would humbly submit.
Thank you, Kadaki. Good morning. I have 3 questions, but my colleague Dennis asked one of them. Mr. Hinds or Mr. Gunse or Dion, are you losing members to the People's Progressive Party? I ask this question because of statements made by the Vice President recently, both in his press conference and at Babujan. He did not single out the WPA, but he did speak specifically to more persons from parties joining the PPP? And my second question, are you contesting, is this party contesting in the local government elections? Could you shed some light on that?
On the first question, we, the WPA, is not aware of no defection of any WPA member to the PPP since the controversy developed. In terms of the party's position on the local government elections, I think it is clear from the campaign that we have launched, where we are calling for the response of the opposition and the country to the PPP local government election, which from our point of view is a political entrapment, given their domination in GECOM, given their refusals to have biometrics, given their refusals to have a clean voters list. We believe that they have set up a path to the next elections. When they finish with the local government elections, they will rig when they finish rigging the local government elections, they will rig the constitutional reform process, because at the end of the day, in that process, whatever you say, but the government got a final say. And then they will rig the national elections. So for the WPA, we don't separate any of those three engagements. And we believe that since the government, in its own wisdom, summons the nation to a local government elections, which by its very nature, the government is asking the country and the populace to engage in intense political activity. And we felt the appropriate response to the government entrapment and their line of march is to turn the 12th of June into a day of Guyanese resistance and African uprising. That is our view. Therefore, it answers the question as to whether or not we will contest the local government elections.
If I may add, in fact, the WPA has gained members over the last 3 weeks. We are processing application for membership, and it has surprised even those of us who are optimistic and more optimistic about membership. But I think the larger question that you ask is African Guyanese showing up at PPP's events, such as the one at Babu John, and whether that means increase in PPP's membership. WPA wants to say that show by the PPP of African Guyanese at the Babu John event is cynical. It's cynical because what the PPP is doing, it is using state resources to entice African Guyanese to these public events so that it can have photo opportunities and then use that to say that they have gained African Guyanese membership. The objective there is to demoralize the African Guyanese community. And in the process of demoralizing the African Guyanese community, they are cynically saying that African Guyanese are gullible. We know the intense political and ethnic divide in this country, and that the whole notion of crossover votes is really a myth. But the PPP is hoping with these pictures at these events to say to other African Guyanese, come over, we have money to give you, we have gifts to give you. And I think that is a very cynical call to the weaknesses in our community. Because of course, people are impoverished, people are down and out, the cost of living is very high, and they expect that their government should be able to solve those problems. And if the government is not solving those problems through policy, whenever the government turns up, they will go to see what they can get. It's the same thing happened at Victoria, and we will continue to see the government enticing these African Guyanese people to have a photo opportunity and to try to further demoralize the community. We are not worried about that because I think we understand the sociology of the country. We understand the situation that African Guyanese are facing, and we understand the political gimmickry or gimmicks that is being engaged in by the PPP. I just want to add to what Brother Ogunse said about the local government elections. Of course, we are not contesting the local government elections, but we want to make it very clear, we are not against elections. We are not against elections as part of the democratic process. But we feel elections by themselves are not akin to democracy. Elections are democratic procedure. Democracy is tested by the substance of the governance. You can be democratically elected, meaning a free and fair election, all right? But how do you use that election to govern? Are you going into people's villages and rather than dialogue with them, you are dismantling their homes? Are you distributing the resources of the state in an equitable manner? Are you doing anything to dissuade the armed forces from extrajudicially killing citizens? Are you using the parliament in a democratic way to ensure that the voices of all the people's representatives are heard? That is, are you democratizing the parliament, or are you turning the parliament into a one-party institution? Those examples are the test or the substance of democracy. And ultimately, a government will be tested not just by the manner in which it comes to office, but the way in which it is governed. And so we want to make clear that we do not share the definition of democracy as being simply election. But we want to say that we believe in elections as a step towards a democratic state. And we are prepared to contest elections on our own or with other partners, so long as those elections meet the test of fairness and freedom from fear. We do not believe that the electoral architecture at the moment allows for a free and fair election. We feel a bloated list of over 200,000 people is an invitation for rigging. It's an invitation. You're saying, here are 200,000 people who are not on the list. And we know that all it takes to win an election in Guyana is one seat, 5,000. And you are saying to people, look, there are 200,000 names there. All you have to do is to pilfer 5,000 and you win an election. We feel that unless we clean that list, we are not going to get democratic outcomes from elections. We feel that other safeguards such as biometrics, which has been suggested by the opposition side, but the PPP has rejected it. We feel that once you reject that, you are closing the door on free and fair elections. So we think that we have to mount, we have to wage a struggle for a clean and reputable electoral architecture. We feel that the PPP has been rigging the personnel at GECOM, for example. Up to now, they've not been able to name a deputy CEO of GECOM because they're trying to put people who are loyal to them in those positions. We feel that the criminalization of the former CEO and DCEO were meant to clear the way for the installation of people who are sympathetic to the PPP. And so the manipulation of the staff at GECOM points to the fact that the rigging has begun. And so we are very clear in our mind that we are not engaging in a rigged election, any rigged election. And so for us, if we cannot get a clean and just architecture that is agreed upon by all stakeholders, you cannot have an electoral architecture that is agreed on by one stakeholder and not the other stakeholders. You are not giving the impression of a democratic process. We have said that we need a political solution in this country, that the problems of this country are not going to be solved by elections. They're going to be solved when the forces of the country can sit down and agree to a political solution. And the way the PPP is operating in relation to GECOM and the voters list, we feel that those things will have to be part of a political solution, because it doesn't look to us as though the PPP is interested in using the democratic process to ensure a clean and just electoral architecture.
One thing, Kidaki, just one, I think we're missing one of a very important aspect of the way GECOM is operating. The minister at Aramlal had redefined boundaries, which clearly we know would give an advantage to the PPP in the elections, due to objections by the commissioners on the that were appointed to the commission by the opposition, and the legal ramifications with the minister's decision. They withdrew the minister's decision, but then when the deliberations went to GECOM itself, the chairman backed the PPP commissioners for the exact boundaries of the minister. So that too, the tinkering of the staff, the redefining of boundaries, the unwillingness to change the composition of the list, all of these elements are clear indications that GECOM is no longer an institution that can be trusted under the PPP to deliver elections that are going to be free and fair. And going into the elections is not a win-win situation. It's totally a lose-lose situation as far as I'm concerned. And so all of the demands that we're making for by Dr. Hinds that you would have highlighted there are key and critical to this process of democracy that we are seeking to bring this country out of this morass that we are currently in. Thank you.
Kidaki brother Vickery has his hand up for the longest while.
Good morning. Just two questions that I have. Since the utterances made by Mr. Ogunse and the other party member, a lot of people have come out and condemned it. And a lot of people, this has now sparked a conversation about race relations in Guyana. So my first question is, what does the party propose? What method would the party propose in terms of tackling the issue of race relations? That's one. And secondly, if the government decides to act on its threat to arrest Mr. Ogunse and the other party member, what does the party do then with regards to that? What is the plan thereafter? Just those two questions.
Well, you shouldn't expect us to reveal our plan, but we have stated very formally that we are also engaged. Dr. Hinds speaking on the behalf of the party. We announced civil disobedience, and we are prepared to use civil disobedience as an effective political weapon. And that would be one of our responses. And we have said it in public that when we look at the lineup of charges they have been uttering since the controversy. Treason seems to be the most severe of the threats, and myself and the WPA has publicly resolved in public that once they come with treason charges, we will not treat it as a legal matter. We will see it as what it is, a political matter. And I will go in the court and plead guilty with explanation. And we will fight it from there. So that is our attitude to the charges. Now, on the question of racism, the WPA by itself can't resolve the racial problem in the country. The Guyana state, from its very origin, was built on the basis of racism. When the white people came to these parts and they met the indigenous people, they imposed a system of colonization based upon racism. And every Guyanese group that came after were subject to that system of racial domination. So race has been an essential part of our being. And if we haven't resolved it in the many centuries by our collective efforts, it is almost impossible to ask any one party or any one group, okay, to find the answer to the problem. But the WPA, from its very inception, have stated an attitude to race. We came into being after a collaboration between ASCRIA, the African Society for Cultural Relations with Independent Africa, headed by Brother U.C. Guyana at the time, and IPRA, the Indian Political Revolutionary Associates, headed by Mr. Moses Bagwan. And as a result of our collaboration, we consciously identify race as an important problem in the political equation. And we established a race commission, which we announced to the country. And where we announced that race commission from both sides of the political divide, accuse us. They said in the papers, the racists come together. I mean, Guyana is a racist, Bagwan is a racist, and the racists come together. But despite that, we went into African and Indian communities and discussed the race problem with people and allowed them to express their views on how they see the problem and a possible solution. And I could tell you that the majority opinion and views were that people recognize the race problem, wanted, okay, a way out of the historical entrapment. And it is that very process that led to the formation of the Working People's Alliance. So our attitude to race has been to recognize the problem, not to wish it away, and to do everything in our power to fashion a political solution. And we have always been arguing for executive power sharing as a way to begin to, put a dent into this problem. You can't have a political system where if a one party win by one seat, they get all the power. And you know what the political power leads to in terms of economic distribution of resources. And we're not fighting for political power for the sake of political power. The racial problem and the sensitivity in terms of politics is the economy and what political power allows one side of the country to do in relationship to the economics of the country. Therefore, our attitude is that the problem could only be addressed when there's a meeting of minds by Guyanese people and Guyanese leaders and Guyanese organizations. And we believe constitutional reform that changed the governance system to one where we don't have winners and losers at the end of the elections will, in a big way, put the country on the road to begin to seriously address the problem.
If I may add, in addition to what Brother Ogunse has said, our position is that the PPP is in no mood to the table when their power is threatened. As recent as 1997, after the 1997 election, the PNC had to take to the streets to bring the PPP to the table. We go back to the 1960s. It was only in 1963 when the PPP under Dr. Jagan realized that this power was slipping away, that they approached the PNC with a proposal to share power. Ultimately, it's about power. We are not going to improve race relations until all the ethnic groups, including the Amerindians, feel a stake in our country. And that is what has been eluding us, where all our ethnic groups simultaneously feel a stake in the country. When the PPP is in power, African Guyanese are alienated. When the PNC is in power, Indian Guyanese are alienated. And so, therefore, we have to come to a political solution that gives constitutional and other guarantees to the ethnic masses of our country. Short of that, we are going to continue to have the kind of alienation that we have. And the fact that the PPP is either ignoring or they just don't understand how deep the sentiments of African Guyanese are against them. There is absolutely no institution in Guyana that African Guyanese can turn to and say, we have a definitive say in decision making, not the civil service, not the police, not the army, not the parliament, not the economy. And I think we think the PPP is underestimating the power, negative power, albeit, of that alienation from country. It can only lead to instability and disorder. And that is why the WP has come to the street corner to talk to our people and to talk to the government especially, to say we are going down a road that all of us would regret. And we don't want to go down that road. We don't want to go down that road. And so therefore we think the time has come for a political solution. Mr. Jack, your statement that we don't share values is instructive. It means that we are alien from each other. We don't share values. That is what this one Guyana government is saying. How can you have a one Guyana where you are saying that you don't share the values of the other side? I think that is so instructive. The WPA itself was shocked that the vice president made that statement. And so it seems as though the PPP wants to go down the road of ethnic conflict. We are trying hard as a party and as part of the opposition not to go down that road. We are trying hard. And so therefore, we continue in spite of the PPP statement to argue for a political solution that gives each ethnic group and guarantees of not being persecuted and prosecuted in the land of their birth. No, Svetlana is next.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Hi, so John from News Source. Mr. Ogunse, you said that the 12th of June should be turned into a day of Guyanese resistance to the African uprising. Could you maybe explain in greater details what exactly you're calling for here and what you hope would be the end result? What are you hoping to achieve from this?
And I'm going to explain it in very simple terms, because not only that I want you to understand, but I want the masses of the country at every corner to understand. What we are saying is that we have basically two choices. Either we do as the government asks and we go there and vote, okay, and return to our homes and so forth, and wait for the results, or we be politically smart and turn the election hoax against them. It is important, given our understanding of the political situation in the country, it is important that the African Guyanese find a way of making a profound political statement. And normally profound political statements are made either through the ballot box or in the streets. And we believe that the 12th of June, where we will be disposing a lot of resources, both financial, human, and otherwise, in a mobilization for the elections, should turn into something meaningful. And in every African community, are we clear? We want Africans to come into the streets, not to the polling stations, okay? And demonstrating to the country and the world, Africans have real concerns, and we are addressing these concerns collectively so there could be no misunderstanding of where our community stands. And we want this activity primarily in African communities. One, to avoid the accusation that our rising up will offend and affect Indians. We don't want one African to go into an Indian village. We feel that since the objective is to have an African political statement, it could be achieved simply by Africans throughout the country rising up, rejecting the elections, and making a profound political statement. That is all what we want. We're not talking about violence. We're talking about politics. You either go in there, if Africans engage elections and go in the polling station and vote, they will be making a political statement. If Africans decide to stay home and don't go and vote, they will be making a political statement. If Africans decide not to go and vote, but to stand up in the streets, okay, and shout, we want freedom, they will be making a political statement. So this is how we see the engagement. And we believe once we succeed in doing that, it relates to its access to oil funds and so forth and so forth. So that is what we expect.
And if I may, Svetlana, because sometimes, we are not guided by our own experiences in Guyana, we think that some of these things are so alien. In 1978, the government of the day called a referendum. And the People's Progressive Party, which is in government today, along with the WPA and other civil society organizations, called for a boycott on that day as a form of resistance. And we were satisfied. We were satisfied that over 80-something% of the people did not vote. In fact, foreign observers who came gave that figure, that 80-something% of the people stayed home. During that time, we didn't call for people to come on to the streets, but we call on them to make the referendum, the boycott of the referendum, as a form of resistance. So we're not inventing anything that Guyana has not done and the People's Progressive Party has not done in its time. We will just be giving them a taste of their own medicine.
Yes, sir. This is on a statement made by the Vice President on Friday at his press conference. Interesting statement. Now, Brother Ogan was there at the beginning. David, you might have been a little too young. Did you join or collaborate with the PNC to kill Walter Rodney?
No, okay. Well, I mean, honestly, I really feel a bit offended to really have to make a defense against that ridiculous remark by the PPP. More so after they themselves organized a commission of inquiry to investigate the death of the assassination of Walter Rodney. And that commission of inquiry never fingered the WPA. That commission of inquiry submits its findings, and the PPP hailed the findings as correct and accurate. So I think the commission answered the question.
Adam, I wasn't young. Well, I was young, but I was in jail. I was one of the persons that Rodney apparently was, according to the narrative, was coming to free from jail. So I was young, but I was very much part of the thing. No, it's a ridiculous statement. But I think what it shows is that when it comes to fighting, the PPP has no regard for language. And when Brother Ogunse, either comradely or uncomradely, was accused of going too far, we can only go as far as the PPP has gone. And look how far the PPP has gone to accusing us of collaborating to kill our comrade. You can't go further than that. So when you are engaging a political animal like that, you cannot use language and imagery for schoolboys. You have to use the same language and imagery that they are prepared to fight you with. Because that is nasty, very nasty on the part of Mr. Jagdeo. But that is how the PPP fights when their back is against the wall. So it is not that the WP has committed an offense. What the WP has done is to push the beast against the wall. And they're coming out swinging with no regard to language, no regard to ethics, no regard to morality. And we want to say as a party, we are prepared to meet them at the crossroads of the concourse of ideas and language and everything that comes with political contestation. We have said we are not a guerrilla force. We don't have weapons. If we had, we would have been in the hills fighting. All we have is a history, an integrity, and an understanding of the political moment. And we are going to fight with that.
I have a question, please, when you're... Yes. Based on your current forecast, what do you expect the response to be to your call for a day of resistance?
It's already the day. The campaign, we got up to the 12th of June. So we are not at that point yet. The work now start. We hope it will intensify as they go close to the 12th and the country is more engaged in the election, the heat and politics. And at that point in time, it will be more appropriate for us to seek to make a judgment. But it's already time in the process.
Dennis, we are not unconscious of the challenges ahead. I mean, the PNC at one point indicated that it was going to contest the elections partially. I noticed a statement by the leader of the opposition last week, which is, perhaps cast some doubt on that approach. But obviously, if the PNC are going to contest the elections, even partially, then that in itself would not lead to a straightforward day of protest. But we are of the view that there is diversity in the opposition, and the PNC has to relate to the election from its own standpoint. And we are relating to it from our own standpoint. There is no monolith as far as political approaches are concerned. We in the WPA would like to believe that we come from a more radical tradition that does not see election as an end in itself, but we see election as a part of the process, and that we are not prepared to trade the dignity of the country just for an election, regardless of the nature of the election. So we may have some disagreements in the opposition, and that will determine, I think, and the WPA thinks, how the day of protest unfolds in the coming weeks and months.
But Dr. Hinds, why is you cannot convince the main opposition party to be in consonance with your position if it is that you are fighting one cause?
We cannot convince another party what to do, and the other party cannot convince us what to do. I suppose the PNC is aware of our position. We have not sat down and tried to see how we can merge the two positions yet, or whether we would like some kind of balancing of the two positions, and that can only come through dialogue.
I'm on mute. Oh, sorry. Okay, thanks.
Yes, good afternoon, or good day, members of the Antonio here from Nigeria. My question to Dr. Hinds, in light of the contention of use of the biometric system by the opposition especially, I know that the government has been a bit reluctant in terms of research. But my question is, the PNCR, they have been lobbying for the use of the biometric system. Is that the same position of the WPA?
Yes, definitely. We feel every device should be used to clean the electoral process. We feel that the voters list, and we've said this before you came on, the voters list is an obstacle to free and fair election. We feel that biometrics would help in ensuring the democratization of the process. And so, yes, we support the use of biometrics. We support the cleansing of the voters list. But the reluctance of the PPP to come to the table at GECOM And to resolve that problem means that it will have to be resolved outside of GECOM. It will have to be resolved as part of a political solution. So the WPA feels that we need a short-term political solution before the elections to ensure that all stakeholders and participants agree on the political and electoral architecture. But we also believe in a longer-term political solution that has to do with ensuring the security of all ethnic groups in the society, ensuring that the oil wealth that is going to come will benefit all of society, ensuring that the governance of our country is one in which the people have confidence in. Now, the IRI in a poll revealed that only 22% of those polled felt that the PPP won the last election and are in power legitimately. Now that is a serious condemnation. It means that more than half or less than half of the PPP supporters believe that it is in power legitimately. And so therefore, what it shows is that elections are not solving the deep-seated problems in our society, economic and political, and that we need that medium to long-term political solution. But we feel that in the short term, we need a political solution as far as the electoral arrangements are concerned.
Sir, do you think that the electronic IDs would resolve that issue? Because you see that the government has already inked agreement. So do you think that would solve the issue of elections or in terms of transparency?
Well, we went down the road of electronic agreement as a party. We haven't really studied that yet, but we went down that road at the 1997 election, and the court, so far as we can remember, led by Justice Claudette Singh, ruled that it was unconstitutional to use IDs in that way. So we don't know what is going to be the legal ramifications of that. But as a party, we have not studied the veracity of that device.
And I just want to add that because it is tied or potentially tied to elections, and given our history of electoral controversy, such a thing should have had the cooperation minimum between government and opposition. And I would say even wider than that. Other civil society organizations. That is something we really should not be done by any government as in a partisan and a one-sided way. And on the basis of that alone, we reject it.
No, I just wanted to highlight.
Mr. Ogunse, sorry to interject, Mr. Harris.
Wait 1 second. Let me just add a little to what Brother Ogunse has said. I'm Keith Branch, for those of you who don't know me, and I just want. Okay. I thought Sideways was better. I just want to say that the PPP government has just entered into a no-bid contract with a German company through a Middle Eastern company to produce a biometric ID. And that biometric identification card would even include citizens' blood type. Now, just imagine something as serious as your blood type being on a card, your DNA exposed on a card that you're carrying in your pocket. Yet that same government is saying that you can't have a similar identification, similar biometric to use in an election. So it's the question of introduction of the biometric is not one of just the constitutionality and feasibility, but it's a political issue. And the PPP sees that the introduction of biometrics not in favor
of them at election time. This is something that they would continue to resist because it gives at least a semblance of an even playing field, and they don't want an even playing field at election time.
Thank you, Mr. Amsterdam. I was asking Mr. Igwensi, when you said that you reject the use, are you referring to the electronic ID cards since there are no consultations?
Yes.
Okay.
There's an hand up there from Tamika Garnett, brother Kadaki.
Hi, good morning. Tamika Garnett, Guyana Chronicle. Mr. Hinds noted, Antonio asked about the use of the electronic ID cards in elections. And Mr. Hinds noted that the WPA hasn't looked into the legal ramifications of using that ID card. Has the WPA into or thought about the legal ramifications that could come out of using biometrics at elections or requiring that as mandatory in the voting process? Do you see legal resistance against that?
Yes, those who are opposed to it could want to test it in the court. And we have no objections to that. We were making a political statement, and that is why I made, my colleague spoke to the political use of the ID card, and I spoke to the legal ramifications. We think politically everything should be done to ensure free and fair elections, including an architecture that is agreed to by all forces. We are, however, aware that there could be legal challenges to the use of these devices. And so at some point, we have to balance the legal and the political.
Okay, so if legal challenges could come out of the introduction of biometrics, which could even see if they are used that an elections could be rendered null and void and have to go over, why should parties be supporting or calling for the use of biometrics or calling for the introduction of anything in the election process that could later end up tying up the whole elections in a lengthy legal battle that could overturn the entire elections?
As I said just now, there are political ramifications and there are legal ramifications. And we are not going to agree to an election going ahead because we don't want to test its legality before. Let the election wait until the legal and political ramifications are worked out by all stakeholders and all institutions in the society. As we said, an election is consequential in a country like Guyana. It's consequential. It's consequential for social groups. It's consequential for ethnic groups. It's consequential for the country's standing in the wider world. And so we have to make sure that when we go to an election, that we ensure that all, if not most, of the challenges are taken care of before the election. The last election, the 2020, it went on for 5 months. And it's easy to blame one party or the other to say it went on for 5 months. But what the 2020 election exposed is the way in which elections in Guyana are compromised. And so long as both sides simultaneously decide to challenge the results, and not the PPP made the first challenge in 2020, and then the opposition joined. And that is what accounted for the 5 months. Do we want to go to another 5 months or another 10 months? Or do we want to make sure that we all agree on the process, both from a legal standpoint and a political standpoint.
Yes, Kadaki, just to follow up on that question, I think that for some there's a fear that having to go to court to resolve these issues is a negative. It's not. I think the citizens of Guyana have a right to want to know that the processes that are in place are processes that can stand the test of time. And one of the ways of doing that is having the final legal opinion. There are several things that came out of the 2020 process that are etched now in the annals of Guyana legality, and is being referenced by both sides continuously. And if the biometric process I would say when the biometric process, because I'm sure it will have to be introduced. We cannot continue in this vein forever. And when that is introduced, there are challenges. The court will decide if it takes 5 months or 6 months or a year for the court to decide. We know that that process will be in place for another generation or two until technology or whatever changes and the process is upgraded. But there's no fear whatsoever in having those challenges in court.
There's one raised hand there, I think.
So I have another question. Yes, I have another question. I'm not sure if this was mentioned earlier because I came into the press conference a little late. What is the WPA's response to the mounting criticism and call for an apology to Mr. Takuma's remarks at the public meeting?
Well, you know, I hear this thing about mounting criticism. Mounting criticism from the PPP and its allies. You almost say that. Not mounting criticism from the opposition. To that, it's only one opposition member who publicly disassociated herself. Mounting criticism from the government and its allies. And what is our response to it? They are doing their job. We are doing our job. We have nothing to apologize to them for.
The PPP should apologize to us for having Guyana in this state.
Mr. Clive, stop. Brother
Clive is on. So we should give him a chance. We should invite Brother Clive to say something.
You want me to say something just for the record?
Yes.
Yes.
Because the debate has been going pretty well without me. I happened to intervene. I happened to turn into the conference a little late because of some logistical issues at my end. I had some difficulty in the computer finding my Yahoo. I don't know if it's accidental or not, but I had quite a bit of difficulty getting in and online. And what I've heard and what I've seen, of course, I know about the statement, but the discussion as I've heard it so far has made me pretty comfortable that we've been able to express what we feel. We didn't discuss anything on the economic issues that we alluded to in the press statement, but that can be saved for another time. And those are equally important. And what I'm particularly concerned about is that the country has a once in a, I would say, an existence opportunity for any country to make things very different from what they were in the past. And if you look at the basic statistics in Guyana, and you make the comparison, let's say, between 2018 to 2020 and 2020 to 2022, you will see the remarkable this difference in the nature of the Guyanese economy. And I think this puts us on the cusp of a really important future. And I don't want it to be wasted. So my concern is to get the politics right so that people can make sure that when this era of oil starts to subside, that we've left a legacy of no Guyanese being in poverty. And I think this is achievable, but the politics is driving a competitive search for constituents and focusing on short-term bribing and trying to win membership through giving away goodies rather than a consistent, focused development program that is aimed at the people as the primary target of the use of the oil resources. So I would not want to burden this particular trend in the press conference, which is focusing on electoral matters, voting issues and that type of thing, by diverting from it on this particular occasion. But maybe next time I could talk more substantively on those issues, which I think have a very important part to play in the future of Guyana. That's all I'd like to add to what has been said.
Yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Quindon Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
Morning, are you morning, neighbor, morning. Listen, me tired, yeah. I got nothing like mental work. Morning, welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. It has been quite a couple of hours since I got out of bed. Oh boy, they're working overtime, they're working hard. If you notice, we're broadcasting on YouTube this morning. Only YouTube got kicked off, knocked off, all kinds of things happening over at Facebook. But we shall survive, we shall win, we shall triumph, you know. I will remind you that, fruit nigga tree nigga fruit, led by a peltam. Right? Tree nigga fruit, led by na peltam. Give me a heads up if you're seeing us on YouTube. Let me know if everything is good over there. And share the live. You need to share the live. Share the live. We have 1.1 thousand, 1,100 subscribers, I think, on Kams Tv on YouTube. And so our viewership should be respectable. Right? Share the live. A lot of people are not aware that we're on. A lot of people are not aware that we are over at YouTube. So encourage them. Call a friend, tell a friend. Hey, they got us wounded over at Facebook, but we are alive and well over at YouTube. Right? That's my encouragement to you. In the meantime, between time, it's Wednesday. Dr. Hinds should have been on, but of course, with all the difficulties I was having this morning, he's not going to be on. But we still got things to talk about. We still got a lot of things to talk about. What are some of the things I want to talk about? I want to start by reflecting on yesterday's press conference of the WP. Right? One person sent me a message and said, Mr. Amsterdam, if the number of questions asked at a press conference is the yardstick for measuring success, WPA had a very, 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 very successful press conference. But I want to focus more on the messaging of the press conference. What were some of the things discussed there? For example, let's turn the local government elections day into a day of protest in the African communities. A day of uprising. Let us, in short, resist any elections, any local government election or any other election, as a matter of fact, with the current state of the voters list and the electoral machinery. That is important, and I want us to talk about that some more this morning, because some people might tell themselves we wait until elections day, which I think is the 12th of June or something like that, the local government election day, to start to take action, to indicate to this ruling government, this ruling party, this cabal, this corrupt set of people that, yeah, we ain't standing for no elections under this regime, no elections under this current state of the electoral machinery. That agitation has to start now. That agitation has to start now. And so I want us to encourage each other that within our families, within our communities, we have to sit and discuss how it is we are going to get this message out loud and clear to the oppressors, that we are not going to stand and allow any local government election to take place under the current electoral regime. How do we do that? For example, April 17th, my understanding is April 17th is nomination day. Why don't we have a big march? Because nomination day, people march to go make their nominations, to submit their nominations and so on. We should have a big anti-election march. Right? We should have a big anti-election march on nomination day to highlight that while the media is reporting on who is nominating and who is submitting lists and so on, that we are saying the climate is not right. The electoral machinery is not in a workable state to grant us free and fair elections, free, fair, and credible elections. So I want to start to encourage us. Let us start to galvanize our troops, get battle ready. So should that call be made for us to be on the streets on the 17th of April, the 17th of next month is just about 18 days, 2 weeks away, to say to this cabal that we're not going to stand for it. And henceforth, we ought to engage in activities that will indicate to them that we are serious about our position, that there should be no elections. The WP has called for civil disobedience. And civil disobedience is not a one-time activity. It's not a one-day activity. It's not a one-hour activity. It is a 24/7 activity. Every minute of the day, every second of the day, you have to be studying, thinking about how you're going to make it difficult for this government to understand this ruling party to understand that we are not going to stand for what you stand for until the electoral machinery is fixed. So let us begin and continue to engage in civil disobedience. You see, I maintain that when you put this PPP government under pressure, that is how they react. That is when they act. Even though they're taking baby steps, and I'm saying they're taking baby steps, they're just trying to appease this situation. When you put them under pressure, they try to appease this situation and hope that you will ease the pressure. Right? Hope that you will ease the pressure. Now, those of you who are saying you don't know how to share on YouTube, when you look at the YouTube screen there, you will see there's an arrow. I think it's right pointing, a right pointing arrow. Right? Yes. You have the name of the show and so on at the bottom, and there's a right pointing arrow. As a matter of fact, it is marked share on it. Now, if you click share on that, several options will come up. Right? Those options would have pictures of WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter and so on. And there's also an option that says copy. That is copying a link to the YouTube program. So you can choose whether or not you want to copy the link and paste it into somebody's messenger or send it via WhatsApp and so on. Right? Or you can simply, when you click and you go to that screen there, click on where you want to share it. If you want to share it on Facebook or WhatsApp and so on, click on it and you will see it's not difficult. It's easy. Right? Good. So yes, I'm saying when the PPP comes under pressure, they are good at appeasing the situation. Right? They are good at appeasing the situation. They like to appease things. Let's talk about that as appeasement, for example. I wasn't there. But when we were talking with Robin on Monday morning, I think, when I spoke with Robin on Monday morning on the program, she said one of the things they promised for Victoria was that they were going to fix 3 roads. 3 roads. The major bugbear in Victoria, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to road, is represented by the Victoria sidelines. Right? It is represented by the Victoria sidelines. I mean, Victorians can tell me differently, but that's how I see it. Good? That's how I see it. Now, this is why it's appeasement. When they look at the cost of doing those 2 sidelines, compared to doing 3 roads, they must have come to the conclusion it is best to give them 3 roads than fix the sidelines. It is best to give them 3 roads than fix the sidelines because the cost of fixing the sidelines is way more than fixing those 3 roads. And we are not prepared to spend good money, a large amount of money, in black communities. We are simply prepared to appease the situation. Give them a token here and a token there to say that we're doing things. And so they can go back in their comfort mode. All right, they're doing something for us. Victorians, Guyanese, African Guyanese, black people, wake up and recognize it for what it is. Because while they are doing 3 roads in Victoria, or while they plan to do 3 roads in Victoria, they are doing dozens of roads in neighboring communities. The Victorians can look across the Cove and John and they will see all of the roads. All of the roads in Cove and John are well done. Like somebody said, even for Crapo Jump on, because there's some places where people hardly live, but they have done the roads. Do not be fooled. Do not be bamboozled. Recognize what is happening. And like I keep saying, and like the WPA keeps saying, unless you're prepared to fight, you ain't getting nothing. And so Victorians must fight for more than 3 roads. Victorians must fight for all of their roads in the community to be done, first and foremost. And as a priority, I think they need to fight to have their sidelines done. The sidelines give them access to their farmlands. The sideline give them access to homes. The sideline give them access to a whole host of things which have serious economic impact on their lives. And so don't fall for that appeasement. And I'm talking about appeasement. I'm not seeing it for myself, but somebody said to me, hey, they're doing Buxton sideline, the sideline that you're always cussing about, the sideline that is in the worst state in Buxton. That's the sideline north of the public road. Well, let me tell you something. That's another appeasement for Buxtonians. Because guess what? Like I said, I haven't seen it for myself, so I'm talking secondhand here. In terms of the advertisement. I understand it is the only piece of road that is going to be done in Buxton. The only piece of road that is going to be done in Buxton. And I got something technical I'm going to point out to you this morning. And I'm arguing that it is not being done for Buxtonians. It is not being done for Buxtonians. It is being done because it's a shared piece of infrastructure with Annandale. And I'm going to prove it to you. So what Buxtonians are saying, or people are going to say, they're doing Buxton sideline. What people are going to say, they're doing Buxton sideline. I am saying this. Even if they're doing Buxton sideline, they're not doing enough because Buxton has a whole larger number of roads that should be done, that they haven't done. Or they haven't indicated that they're going to do them, number one. Despite the promises of Super Mark Phillips, that Afrocentric guy that doesn't even know what is Afrocentrism to start with. Right? Came to Buxton on the 4th of July. I will not forget last year because we had the day of protest at the same time. They came in competition with us to prove that they could get more Buxtonians to attend their whatever event than our day of protest. They made all kinds of promises. Little or none of it has been fulfilled. But here it is. We're informed, I am informed, that they are advertising for construction of one road with the name Buxton on it. The Buxton sideline, as I used to usually say, is the sideline, Buxton sideline is between Annandale and Buxton. West Annandale, East Buxton. Right? My information is that it is the only piece of road being done with Buxton on it. And I'm telling you why it is the only piece of road being done in Buxton on it. And it is not being done for Buxtonians per se. Annandale, all the roads in Annandale are being done right now. Right? All of the roads in Annandale are being done right now. And if you cast your eyes to your screen, you will see that I'm showing you an image that was sent to me where that pen marker is. Right? You will see a whole list of Annandale roads. Right? Rehabilitation, construction of Seawall Road, Annandale, Sand Reef, East Coast Region 4. Rehabilitation/construction of Sideline Dam, Buxton, NOPR is north of Public Road, Annandale, Sandreef, East Coast, Demerara, Region 4. Are you understanding that description there? Right? Rehabilitation and construction of Seawall Road, Annandale, Sandreef. Rehabilitation and construction of Sideline Dam to Annandale, Sandreef. Rehabilitation and construction of Assembly Street, Annandale. Rehabilitation and construction of street adjacent to church, Annandale. Construction of 2nd Street, Annandale. Construction of Nkrumah Street, Annandale. Rehabilitation and construction of Middle Street, Annandale. Construction of road network south, Annandale. Right? The only reason that Buxton Sideline is being done is because they are doing the roads in Annandale, and Buxton Sideline is a shared piece of infrastructure between Buxton and Annandale. And a whole host of Annandalians use it. And so they're doing it because it's a benefit to Annandale. Right? It's a benefit to Annandale. Yes, it will benefit of Buxtonians. I'm happy that the road is being done. But I'm showing you the wicked and vindictiveness and the racism with which the PPP makes its decisions. That is what I'm pointing out to you. And so don't be fooled by this tokenism to African Guyanese communities. We're going to do 3 roads in Victoria. I read somewhere they say 1,085 roads are being done across the country. I am looking at that list. I'm doing my own research now. Because a short advertisement I saw in the Guyana Chronicle last Sunday shows a long list of roads to be done in Region 6 and Region 5, for example. PPP strongholds. When compared to Region 4, the most populated region. Tokenism. I continue to say they're going to give you pittances to keep your mouth shut. Push little food in your mouth. You know when baby crying, mama take out breast and push it in baby mouth. Baby gonna satisfy for a short time and so baby not gonna cry. Parents will know that as soon as you pull out the breast, baby start crying again. They got some baby like that. They want the breast in the mouth only. The reality is that is what the PPP is doing to African Guyanese communities. Tokenism. We're going to get a small thing here and a small thing. They say you're going to shut him out. African Guyanese have to recognize that. And do not go back and sit into your comfort zone and say, yeah, they're doing something for us. You have to continue to fight. And like Takumo Ogonse said, like WP is saying, political power is economic power. Because who controls the political purse, who controls the country's purse, determines who benefits economically, which communities benefit economically. Do you know what a functioning road network does for your community? It brings more people, it causes more traffic through your community. And as more people commute through your community, your businesses in your community get more support. People driving through your community will see things on sale. The plantain chip stand at the end of the road. A plantain chip stand at the side of a broken up road is worse off than a plantain chip stand at the side of a well-kept road. Because more people will pass on the well-kept road, and so your plantain chip stand gets more views. And more people will be tempted to buy. I'm giving you the simplest of explanations. And so when roads are being done, look at that whole long list of roads being done in Annandale, for example. There will be more traffic through Annandale. Because the fish shop at the back of Annandale will be easily accessible because the road is well done. A 2-minute drive from the public road to the fish shop at the back of Annandale is not stress. And so I could make a quick detour and get this fish, but I want some fish. Here there's do good fish at the back there. I could make a quick detour and go at the back there and buy fish. But when the road is like Buxton Sideline, for example, to get from the public road to the back of Buxton Sideline, where there's a fish shop, with better quality fish than the one in Annandale, you have to take 15 minutes from the public road to get to that fish shop on Buxton Sideline, because the Buxton Sideline is in a deplorable state. And so by me able to go down there, the thing on broke up me car and all kind of thing, leg on buy second quality from the one in Annandale. You don't have equal opportunities because your infrastructure is not up to par. And that is why it is important that we insist that our infrastructure in the communities be fixed. Not 3 roads in Victoria. There are lots more roads, as many as, you see this list in Annandale here? There's many roads in Victoria that are in need of fixing. The Victoria West Sideline. There are a large number of farmers down there. They farm on the land opposite the sideline, across the trench, or canal, whichever one you want to call it. With their roads being in good state, it will take them a few minutes to get their produce from the farm to the public road to the market. Or from farm to market, let's say. It will take them less time than it is taking them now. Because in the first instance now, they can't get to bring their produce out. They can't get to bring their produce out in a timely manner because transportation providers are refusing to go down the west side line and the east side line because of the state. Can you imagine? We usually say trucks are built to go anywhere. Can you imagine truck drivers refusing to go down Victoria sideline now? Yes. And so the produce can't get to come out. And as a result of the difficulties of getting the produce out of the farms to the market, a lot of people have either given up on the farming or they have reduced the amount of farming that they do. Because again, I'm showing you the economic impact. When you do large-scale farming and you cannot get your produce to the market on a timely manner, it means that you get a lot of spoilage on the farm. And who wants to invest their labor to suffer loss through spoilage on the farm? Nobody. And so they have either reduced their output or they have given up in total. And that's an economic impact on Victoria. As an example, because it is happening across other communities in this country. The people in Mocha can tell you of the impact of blocked drains and so on their economic output from the farms. It has reduced markedly. They had market day last Sunday and people tell you. It was not as vibrant as previous market days. And so the PPP knows what they're doing. The PPP intends to just give you a morsel so you could shut your mouth and they could get on to business as usual. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Buxtons, I want you to take note. With all the promises you got almost a year ago, very little or none has been fulfilled. And the one road that is being done from this budget that has Buxton marked on it is a road that services Buxton and Annandale. And it really and truly is in a list of roads to be done for Annandale. What did participation at the outreach in Buxton bring Buxtonians? All those of you who went to the outreach, all those of you who allowed a certain person to give you $5,000 on behalf of the government, on behalf of the PPP, to don't go to the protest, but go to the outreach. What has that brought you? The $5,000 done by the end of the day. What improvements have you seen in your lives? What improvements have you seen in your lives? It's almost a year. What improvement have you seen in your lives? What did you do with that $5,000? And maybe a box of food you got when you went there. In fact, I understand it was a slice of cake and an aerated drink. What better quality of life are you living now? Go over to Annandale and see the infrastructure being unrolled. Go over to Lozignan and see the infrastructure. We have to fight for what we want. We are not going to get it in any other way. And part of that fight is civil disobedience. And part of that fight is ensuring that there is no local government elections that will take place under this current electoral regime, because the machinery is in disarray. Buxton, for example, is controlled by the PPP. The Buxton Falls NDC is about 17 communities, including Buxton, Friendship, Vigilance, Melanie, Bachelor's Adventure, Beirut, right? Traspe, Bladenall, Enterprise, Falls. I want you to take a walk in this neighborhood, Buxton Falls NDC. It's controlled by the PPP. Note I said that PPP has the majority councillors and the chairmanship of the Buxton Falls NDC. Take a walk in this entire neighborhood of about 17 communities. Compare the development in the Indo-Guyanese communities to the Afro-Guyanese communities. And tell me if really and truly you want the PPP tell me if really and truly you want the PPP to be in control of your NDC. Or even the municipalities which just say they are calculating on winning in the next local government election. And so long as you don't want them to be in control of your NDCs and municipalities, I am saying that you have to take steps now to ensure they don't rig the local government elections. And to prevent the rigging of the local government elections, you have to insist on biometrics, you have to insist on a clean voters list, you have to insist on the fixing of the electoral machinery. And they're not going to fix the electoral machinery unless you put up strong resistance to them using it as it is. And so let us start the resistance now. Let us look to the 17th of April as perhaps our first step of showing mass disagreement with the use of the electoral machinery. And then when it comes to June 12th, let us show a bigger resistance to any election if they were to propose to continue to go to an election on that day. But I'm saying, look at the communities in the Buxton Falls NDC. Compare what's happening in Indo-Guyanese communities versus Afro-Guyanese communities. And you will see in places like Enterprises, all of their streets are done. Every single one of them, even cow pasture, streets are leading to in Enterprise. Check Buxton. Majority of your streets are in disrepair. Check Melanie. And let's talk about Melanie, because you will remember I went to Melanie and I highlighted the problem of streets in Melanie. And just like they did in Victoria, when we went to Victoria 2 Sundays ago, they went last Saturday. When I went to Melanie, they came the following Saturday, I think. And they made Melanie a whole host of promises. What has Melanie gotten? Go down what I usually call 8 of Mill Street. I think that's where it is, Nursery School Street. Go down there for starters. That's the main access into Melanie. You go and see the state of that road. And check all the streets in Melanie and see the state of the streets, the state of disrepair of those streets in Melanie. It is since last year that they made promises to the Melonians. We came to listen to you. We have heard. We are going to walk your community as you insist, and we are going to recognize what has to be done. Find out what has been done. Except that they have pushed morsels in some of the Melonians' mouth, entice some of them with power, and send them to try to take over the Vijayastra Co-op Society. Try to impose on the legally constituted management of the Vijayastra Co-op Society an interim caretaker body with people who are not even members of the Vijayastra Co-op Society. That is what Melanie has gotten in return for their visit to Melanie. But in Indo-Guyanese communities, their infrastructure is being done. They're getting grants to playgrounds. Monies are identified for community enhancement. For example, in enterprise, the money was sent through the NDC and they were told this money is strictly to be used in enterprise. And only enterprise people must be employed on the projects. But we are accepting tokens in African Guyanese communities and behaving as though we're getting the cream of the crop. Why am I harping on streets? Infrastructure is one of the most visible form of development or lack thereof. You can look at a community's road and know how developed or undeveloped or underdeveloped it is. But we can talk about healthcare. Again, we have heard from Robin, who said who was at the outreach. She said what? They said they're building a hospital where the Enmore Polyclinic is currently. Right? I can't remember the description, but they're building a hospital there. Since Noah was a boy, the Buxtonian Center, because it has the capacity, was identified to be a cottage hospital. Works had started on the Buxtonian Center. Overseas support was garnered, and works were done for the Buxtonian Center to be elevated to cottage hospital status. Ask this wicked and vindictive government why it is not yet a cottage hospital. It is in an advanced state. It is ready to accept beds, for example. There's an entire top flat at the Buxtonian Center that is ready to accommodate the facilities to make it a cottage hospital. Where is it in this government's budget? I shared with you previously, I went to the Buxtonian Center to get my teeth cleaned. And they said they weren't doing cleaning because they didn't have the necessary supplies to do cleaning. And I left and I went to the very Enmore Polyclinic. And there were no less than 5 dental practitioners there performing dental services. You didn't have to make an appointment. You just turn up. And within half hour, I was able to get my teeth cleaned at the Enmore Polyclinic. We're talking chalk and cheese when it comes to African Guyanese communities and Indo-Guyanese communities. Some people call me the racist. But when you look at how this ruling party, predominantly Indian ruling party, treats African Guyanese communities versus Indo-Guyanese communities, you be the judge. Who is the racist? Who be the racist? But our brothers and sisters are ready and willing to run and go to these outreaches. I don't know what hope they have, quite frankly. I don't know what they hope to achieve by going to these outreaches, except fair promises, a comfort of fool. But as they say, to each his own. Y'all could keep going. My recommendation and the WPA recommendation is keep fighting. Because that is what brings them to the table. And if you're not convinced that fighting brings them to the table, ask yourselves why it is they came to your communities after the WPA hosted meetings. Check. All of the communities on the East Coast, well, let me modify that statement. All of the African Guyanese communities on the East Coast that the PPP came to and held outreaches were African Guyanese communities that the WPA or WPA representative went to and highlighted the problem. So we've been leading and they've been following. Why? Because they're trying to prevent us from fighting. They're trying to prevent the fight. As we encourage the people to fight, they turn up and try to appease the people. But y'all could continue taking the appeasement. WPA is saying, fight. Fight against any local government elections being held with the current state of GECOM. Fight against any local government elections being held with a fraudulent list. Fight against any local government elections being held without biometrics. Teamwork makes the dream work. There's unity in strength. There's strength in unity. And we can use all of those terminology and phrases and idioms and whatever we want to call them. But in reality, we have to put our shoulders to the wheel and we have to act. It's 8:30, the lines are open. 6225933 is the number. 6225933 is the number to call. You're tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. I'm your host, the Buxtonian, Kidaki, Amsterdam. Let's have those calls. I'm listening. I had a torrid time this morning. They fight me bad, man. We're not on the we're currently not on Facebook because of whatever, I don't know what, but I couldn't spend the entire morning trying to resolve it, but call A Live, good morning.
Morning, brother, morning.
Morning, brother,
Pleasant
morning.
bye. Pleasant new day, my brother.
Blessings.
Pleasant new day. Good blessings, greetings, brother. You see, you're very much on point with your reasoning. We got some black brothers. They're so weak. For instance, like this guy that from Linden, Keith Ferrier. I grew up knowing about these guys and think how they claim to be militant, but now you're seeing what these banner really is. Some big empty barrel. The weak and they can't hold themselves up. They appears to be militant, and because they feel so good in coming against the own, and it causing a pressure on those brothers and sisters of Amerindian ethnicity, of Indian ethnicity, that willing to speak out, because people like those other brothers and sisters of other ethnicity will know this guy and know that, you know, they would want to put up a fight. When they see this big empty barrel get so weak, it weakens their strength to fight against this system, this wicked and evil system. And they got plenty of them James Bond and them, you know, they allow themselves to get so weak, because it's true what you're saying, brother. You know, these guys are not only weak, they're very much selfish, because they collect the pittance. Look in the neighborhood, and all they would do, tell people in the grouping, is that them man doing thing, what Granger them do. And to imagine people who were supposed to be intelligent for see the bare-faced evilness of not just the PPP Barojak, you know, the wickedness in this man. Look at this man's lifestyle. Look how he live. You know, he got a big mansion. You alone inside. You could tell this man is naturally closely knit with the satanic forces, and he don't care of whatsoever he do to grip and hold on to power. Look the lies, bare-faced lies this man they at Babu John. You know, and talking how Aubrey Norton knock off 2 Indo-Guyanese general secretary from the party, and this man don't care how he built out lies. And black brothers that seeing the oppression of the own stand up there with red jersey and putting out, and you know, just listening to these kind of things. These kind of lies and things, seen in the community, that nothing and doing. Look the destabilization they put out in Buxton and them place, and they still got people who supporting these people like him. They so care about them. But let me tell you where's the trickle down. The story with the guy in Linden. This guy Fawaz Mukri that shoot the guy. And so you see, when the ancestors and when people cry, don't you, for the wrong things that you're allowing yourself, no, because this little guy is a very decent young man, but the stance with father take, the cries what has come down point father for collecting pettiness, pittance from PPP for self gain, for self, and got a whole community got for crying out for the hardship what they're going through, and you don't care. There's the results of the ancestors, and I want to tell people like James Bond, you won't come into, you won't come. It's not that I'm glad with what happened to the McRae guy. It's not that I'm glad with what happened, but I'm talking about the cries of poor people, cries of people that injustice reigning down upon. You, Keith Ferrier, your Torn coming, and all the rest of black brothers and sisters who do just decide to get a lazy and a selfish mind for stoop for the little. It's and Jam Crew attacking to y'all to your Torn coming. Your Torn coming is going to be bitter. They're going to be bitter because black cries get on you. And they're going to come down, read up on y'all, are your children and are your grandchildren. They're going to read up on red. Y'all just continue. Just continue with y'all selfishness. Are you continue? Have a blessed day, brother. Continue to show. Continue to be blessed. Continue to be blessed, brother.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Somebody just sent me a photograph, or I saw a photograph just now of rice flour bread manufactured by Narayan's Bakery. I got a post yesterday, I can't remember. I saw a post yesterday. But what the person was had sent to me is the GRDB, Guyana Rice Development Board, King Jabur, I think is the name of one of the members of the board there. King Jabur singing the praises. Hold the line for me, caller. Singing the praises of the Rice Development Board, some kind of committee, having experimented with rice flour. And the result was so good that Narayan's own bakery is now manufacturing rice flour bread. Well, hey, Eureka moment. Fox Bottom had been manufacturing rice flour bread since in the 80s. And your ancestors, they balling and hollering. So Fox Bottom wicked, he banned flour and he got eating rice flour. Hey, Eureka moment. Y'all didn't discover nothing. Y'all resurrect rice flour in this country. I'm not claiming it like the PPP is doing all the time. They're claiming things that they have never, ever had an input in creating in this country. All the false claims they're making. But you know why they could make these claims and get away with them? Because we are not setting our children down and talking to them and teaching them the history of this country. So rice flour is a new discovery in this country. When rice flour been since way back when, and not only rice flour, they had rice cake, and they had rice krispies, and they had rice all kind of thing in this country from Fox Burnham time. But suddenly, these demons discover rice flour. Y'all pray for them. Carla Live, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Kadaki. About when I made that statement in Buxton, everybody jumped on me.
Rhonda.
No, listen, Kadaki, please don't cut me off. I know where I'm going. Now, last night, I was looking at Mark Benchcup with Mr. Lincoln Lewis, who presented a title deed or a transport for a land that his ancestors bought since I think it was 1845. And now they are the Indian people who go to take over this land. And Vinceed was trying to say that this man, Mr. Lincoln, does not have ownership of the land. Hence, the land must go to the Indian people who are trying to take over the land. Anyway, I think the matter is in court, and they have forced Mr. Lewis and his offsprings not to be on the land because they want to give over the land to these people. That is the same thing I said at the meeting in Buxton. And now last night, I was able to see that it was not only imagination of me, but it is reality in real life. Contact Lincoln Lewis and he will tell you. Now the other point, remember these people who they had installed regime given this 10 days work? Now many of them have been placed in like the village office or the NDC office. And their work in the NDC office, they are collecting data of lands owned in the village. And they are passing out this information to the installed regime. So when they have their operatives working in the NDCs or the village office, they are streaming valuable information on proprietors' land. So when they hand out this, then the big guns come down with bulldozers, with all kind of things, and force people off their lands. So that is a new development of the CDC mechanism that the installed regime is putting in all the areas, and it is mainly functional in the African communities. Because if they don't get this link from inside the village office, they wouldn't know where to bounce on to take away lands. Because remember, you got your smartphone, blap, you snap, and you send. So when you think that all is well and your things is safe because of these operatives. And remember, they go in there. They don't understand that they are just window dressing and young house slaves of the PPP to destroy the mechanism that was there before. So that is what is going on. And our house slave was bashing me. Say, I brought y'all WPA to speak race at the meeting of Indian Amsterdam.
Thank you, Randa.
Nothing about race was being mentioned in the meeting. I went to 5 meetings since this meeting started, and I can safely say in my hearing, I have not heard about race. All that the WPA is telling people to be alert, be vigilant with what is going on. That's all the advice the meeting gives out to people. And if you go to a meeting and advice is given out, you have got to study which part of the spectrum you fall and what part of the meeting is being given that you could follow through. I don't have time with the house slave.
Thank
the
you,
house
Randall.
slave is not in my book.
Thank you,
All
Randall.
right, so that is it. Yeah, bye-bye.
Call it live. And by the way, let me say to you that Coffee was in touch with me yesterday. And like I was saying all the time, he has indicated that his internet was giving him trouble, or his internet-ready device. And I think he's working on that, where he has worked out a solution for that. So Coffee is well and good, like I was suggesting. Call it live. Good morning.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning, all Guyanese, and good morning.
All right, bye.
Diaspora.
Go ahead.
Yes, you know, in this technological age, as we are all on YouTube today, which is evidence of the fact that sometimes you have access and the next time you don't. So my device, so some of you who I normally communicate with, is because of technology. Good. So I wanted to touch on the press conference yesterday, the WPA's press conference yesterday. I thought it was very timely, very professional, very worthy of people who are contending to lead our country, right? That face of professionalism, okay? Good. Now, Dr. Hinds spoke about a padded list, and a padded list of about 200,000 voters, which Claudette Singh, who when she was chief judge, ruled that it was not lawful, not constitutional, to change that entire issue or problem. Now, that 200,000 list, the padded list, that was okay then, according to Claudette Singh. And I've said before, previously on this show, that there is evidence now to refute and overturn Claudette Singh's decision. But it can be taken by another route. While I'm saying that, that's for lawyers to approach. But I'm also noticing that Dr. Hinds very prudently said that the WPA is approaching this two-pronged. One legally and one politically. Meaning there is a legal approach and a political approach. And while I favor the legal approach in some aspects, I also understand why the political approach is very, very prudent, very, very wise. Because a lot of, as we have seen, that the courts don't seem to favor us. So when the courts don't seem to favor us, that's when we take political measures, as Brother Takuma Ogunse has advocated. I think it was June the 12th, for a day of action. Political action. And when it's political action, we take things and take matters away from traditional strategies and put it in the hands of civil disobedience. Now, I also want to touch on an issue of constitutionality versus lawfulness. And all along, I'm on topic, because as we notice, the issue of elections is largely about politics and largely about law. So, there are a lot of laws which are lawful but aren't necessarily constitutional. That's part of where our problem lies. Roxanne George is saying yes, Article 22 of the Elections Amendment Act is lawful. And we are saying in Petition 88, yes, it's lawful, but it's also unconstitutional. Now, there's a very delicate distinction here. Many years ago, apartheid was lawful, but it was immoral and unconstitutional. Segregation in the United States was lawful, but it was unconstitutional. Slavery was lawful, but it was unconstitutional. My point is, oftentimes you will see, and that's where Roxanne George is getting away with it, but we've got a trick for her. She is taking confidence in tricking us to believe that, according to her mind, it is lawful. Yes, Roxanne, Justice George, it is lawful, but it's also unconstitutional, and here's why, very briefly. As Roysdale Ford has also been arguing, there is no way that you could ask one individual in GECOM to do the job that the entire concept of universal suffrage and voting has conferred onto Parliament. Let me ask the simple question. In a democracy, how could a democracy doctrine hand over to GECOM and ask Claudette Singh by herself to do the singular job that was supposed to be intended for 65 members of Parliament? It could never happen in a democracy. Democracy never, on its worst day or a good day, worked like that. So right away, the regular person can see that Roxanne George is wrong. The issue is, can we get the courts to accept that? But fundamentally, democracy will never give the entire responsibility of a 65-member parliament and put it in GECOM and says one or two people decide. And do the same decision-making process that 65 elected members would have to do. And that's the crux of the matter. Why we say Roxanne George is unconstitutional. Now, under review, we can change the constitutionality of that law. And another day we can talk about that. I want to move very quickly. Dr. Hinds has says that the WPA will embark upon a political solution. And I think that is very timely. Now, about Brother Takuma Ogunse's statement on Buxton Line Top. Mr. Ogunse is a keen listener. And because he's a keen listener, he was able to raise the question that is troubling the PPP. It's the very same question we have discussed previously before when I raised the question about Paul Slow and Mr. Conway. You force the joint services to evaluate themselves. And that's what's very troubling for the PPP, because Mr. Takuma Ogunse seized the moment to speak to the entire nation on Buxton Line Top, very opportune moment, to ask the question whereby joint services would have to question themselves. Is it right? Is it lawful? And that is something that is troubling the military, Mr. Best, and the PPP, because they don't want regular GDF and police to stop and question whether or not they should pull the trigger. Because at that pivotal moment, the sway, the balance of power shifts. And it's the shifting of the balance of power at the trigger finger, at the finger of the trigger. That's where the power of balance lies. And Mr. Takumo placed a question on that. So the military, Mr. Best, realized that you have soldiers standing there and can't decide whether they should shoot or not. Military officers deciding whether they should attack or don't attack. And the PPP realized there and then that they had to contend with that question. It's not about all this other stuff. No, it's not about that. It's about, will their officers carry out unlawful orders on that day?
Thank you, Kofi.
Lastly,
okay.
Yes, sir. So once again, thank you for listening, and it's good to be back amongst good people.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It's
Thank
now
you, sir.
4 minutes, 6 minutes a day, 9 o'clock hour. Yeah, we took a beating. We started a little late and so on and so forth. Well, I have to try to keep it tight this morning. I know there are lots of people who want to contribute, and so we're going to try to facilitate everybody. We have voice notes.
Thinking that we can't get all of it, if you want to migrate to YouTube, even the trench he's going to come over to YouTube, or what is going to be done? We're going to have the greater monetization to you. Good. Number 2, defamation of character. By Jack Deere saying that Ogunse was a part of the assassination of Dr. Walter Rodney. It is a good move for Ogunse to march him up the court steps, so he could spend some money, because, you know, as Ogunse said, the Commission of Inquiry cleared everything and said what went on. So I think it's a good move. Let's start hitting their pockets too.
Well, you know, I always say time will tell. You can't overplay poker, you know. Poker don't always expose your hand. You can't, if you expose your hand too early, you're going to lose and all of that. So who knows? Who knows if Jack Young if Jack Deere will get marched up any step? I don't. Let me just show you what happened in France not so long ago. Those of you who are paying attention. The French police refused to fight with protesters. Look at this video. There are 2 videos. calling there for Macron to go. Why? He proposed a law that will change the retirement age from 62 to 64. The people were against it. They started protesting. And he used what I consider veto powers. He used an article, the article was listed there just now, an article of the law that allows him to bypass the votes of the deputies. Because he knew that if deputies were likely to vote against the law. And so he used that article to bypass the vote of the deputies. And so he could have had his own way, a one-man show kind of. And the people decided that we're not going to stand for this, and protests erupted in the streets, countrywide. What is notable is that the police refused to enable him with his misbehavior. As against Guyana, where the police are enablers of the PPP and their madness. In France, the police dump tools. They say, we ain't going to shoot nobody, we ain't fighting nobody. The people have a just cause, let them protest. That's a democracy. Can we take a page out of the book? We like to import foreign things. Why not import that? In this instance, the police were turning the guns in the right direction. And so the Guyana police and soldiers must understand they must turn the guns in the right direction when this government is to be confronted. Good? I see Max Stamp is talking about the metrics in this morning's program. 308 comments, only 21 likes. And he's right. Y'all need to like. Like and share. Like, subscribe, and share. That's how you grow the page. Like, subscribe, and share. For several months, I've been telling you, start migrating to YouTube. We're going to have to end up here anyhow at some point in time. Good? This morning, we were forced to go over there. And the numbers are fairly healthy over here at YouTube. But like I said, if you like, subscribe, and share, then more people are going to get the message about coming over to YouTube. In terms of monetization, like the brother spoke about, Guyana is a truly shithole country. Let me explain that. Because we are broadcasting from Guyana, we don't get to monetize anything. We do not get to monetize anything because we are broadcasting from Guyana. We're creating content out of Guyana, but we don't get to monetize it because we are in Guyana. Can you imagine you cannot even accept payment on PayPal once you're in Guyana? That is how shithole we are. In this century, 2023, this year 2023, I think as simple as a PayPal payment, Guyanese cannot accept or cannot receive. PayPal will not allow payments to be made via their platform to Guyana. Guyanese can pay to foreign companies and foreign nationals via PayPal, but they can't receive pay. And that tells you how progressive your government is. It tells you also how progressive your country is. Voice note.
Morning, Mr. Amsterdam. I wonder when would the leader of the opposition party, the main opposition party, decide that they can stop on outreach and start gathering 100, 200, 300, 400 people to walk behind him around the city in Georgetown instead of walking with a couple of them in an outreach. It's time this damn outreach thing stop and start walking the streets. Like he don't listen to Jagdeo. He listen to him selectively. Jagdeo said that the PNC undying. It's time he should show Jagdeo that no, we are well gathered. It's time he showed this man that all the ignorance and lies that he's peddling around this place, we're not in for it. It is time something be done. Because the next thing you know, Jagdeo and his kleptomaniac friends are going to get up and say, black people mustn't walk the street, black man mustn't eat, and black man mustn't do this. We can give them time to eat, we can give them time to drink, we can give them time to do this. And all Mr. Norton is doing is walking with outreach. Stop the goddamn outreach and start walking the streets in your thousands. Thank you.
Thank you for that voice note. It is now 3 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour on the 29th day of March in the year 2023. You've been tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. This is where I prepare to take my leave of you. Remember, the anniversary of Kams TV is coming up. It's the 3rd anniversary. We have survived so long, they didn't expect us to survive. 3 years doing this. It's coming up in July, and my birth anniversary is a few days later or earlier in July also, and so we have this grand celebration on the 15th of July. It's a 3-course dinner and dance, live band and so on and so forth. Your contribution is small, man, $10,000 all inclusive. Right, those of you who want to have table specials, when we talk about table specials, we're talking about a table with liquor of your choice and cutters and what we call it, chasers and so on. Right, a kind of VVIP kind of thing. We have specials, we have table specials. You can hit us up, you can WhatsApp me and say what you want on your table, and we'll give you the appropriate pricing. Right, but the general attendance, dinner, beverages, dance, $10,000 or $50 US. Like I said previously, you can't come, you know what you gotta do? Sponsor somebody. Right? Good. But let's talk about it's a blue and gold affair. Blue because it's my favorite color. When I talk about blue, I laugh. Because blue is my favorite color. And every time I look around to get dressed, I find something blue these days. Right, so yes, blue, it's blue and gold because blue is the Jubilee color. And I mean gold is the Jubilee color, blue is my kind of thing. So it's blue, gold, and white actually. There are going to be trimmings of white, I was told. So come on down, have a fun. As a matter of fact, when I was told to inform you that you should get your outfit ready because somebody wants to sponsor you. Good? Get your outfit and your partner ready. Somebody wants to sponsor you. So yes, you can start planning for that, folks. But let's talk about taking action. Civil rebellion. Right? Civil disobedience, that is. I am saying seriously that perhaps on the 17th we need to band ourselves together and make a large showing in front of GECOM. Not to nominate anybody, not to present any list, but to present a protest saying that the elections are to be postponed, they are to be cancelled, postponed until such time that the machinery is fixed. Fixing the machinery means we're talking about biometrics, we're talking about clean voters lists, and all else that will ensure that the elections are free, fair, and credible. So keep that in mind. And it is time we start organizing our communities, our families and friends and so on, to join these mass movement actions when they're called for, because I'm telling you that there are a lot of them that will be called in the not so distant future. And, you know, as they say, the proof of the pie is in eating. Whether or not the ruling party takes us seriously will be dependent on how our people react when the call is made. Meantime, between time, this is the Guyanese Morning Time. I'm taking my leave of you. Be safe, be productive, and I'll see you. Well, Dr. Hinds will pause slow. We'll see around 11 o'clock, 11 or 12 for speaking out against incompetence, corruption, and whatever else. And Dr. Hinds is going to be with you this evening at 19 hours for another program of Politics 101. Stay tuned.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in to Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Amsterdam.
Remember to like and share. Subscribe to the YouTube page.
Guyanese Morning Time, the people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Kams TV, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruptions over land and sea, where the wicked politicians they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting aisle money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Beep, beep, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see, sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbors, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, which Jah has ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. Stop fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. I say Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. They got Breakford, Bork and Mark Benchcop. David Hinds and Kadaki Amsterdam. Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London. Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, poor people governor. Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson. Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Wyndham Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
Guyana and Guyanese
of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana